So Barry, how do I sound this week?
You sound so much better than last week. I cannot believe you went an entire podcast with such rubbish audio quality.
Yeah, no kidding. It seems like that one piece really holds us back. In my head, it holds us back. It probably doesn't. People are probably fine with it, but it's like, I don't know. It sucks to put so much effort into something that you love so much, and then to have it suffer because you didn't check a setting at the top.
Well, all I can say is let yourself down. You let the podcast down.
Yeah, exactly.
Get your community down. Exactly. Nobody actually noticed. What does that make?
Speaking of community, not to toot our own horn here, but somebody referred to Human Factors Cast as a pillar of the Human Factors community the other day, and it really warmed my heart a little bit.
That's really. Was it pillar or pillow?
Pillar.
Pillar. I was going to say if it was a pillow, that could be slightly different.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's
it's what everybody uses to go to sleep. Human Factors ASMR, right?
That's fantastic news. That's really cool.
Yeah, I thought it was a tremendous compliment, and I'm really thrilled about it. Hang on, I am testing my audio right now. Hang on.
Yeah, I was going to say, please go back and check it over the monitor. And
I am testing my audio. Yep, no, it's good. It's good. It's good. Yeah. All right, I'm just making sure because I don't want to have that happen again. That was embarrassing. Professionalism out the door.
Why a lot of publishers and stuff have the little red light on the microphone, not just in the studio. You need one. Mm-hmm. So I've done that myself because I have the mic I use for work, and that's just sort of sat there. It's a half decent one, but it's not a good quality one. And then I have this one, which I save for special podcasting occasions. Which really I should just use it for everything, but I do think this is a bit more special. Whereas the other one's just an everyday robust, still not cheap, but that type of mic. Yeah. But there we go. It's the amount of money you can spend on just random little gadgets in terms of all this stuff, just to get a little bit extra perfection of
I know.
Noise. If only the thing is, what you have is that idea of all the gear and no idea. So I got lots and lots of gear. So I don't know.
Half and half over here.
I don't know what I'm doing, so I've got all the really good kit. So it looks good if nothing else.
Okay, so show notes. Hi everybody. We're Barry and I talk for about 10 minutes before the show goes live to loosen us up. We knock a couple back just to make sure that we're in the mood to podcast here. Mm-hmm. And so I often forget that we go live and then we just ramble, and I forget to say hello to everybody watching. So if you are watching this live, hello. Thank you for joining us. I really appreciate that. This is the pre-show. We're going to be talking about some of the show notes. The story that we have for you tonight is talking about mental health and what that term really means. So it'll be an interesting episode. If you're watching this live, actually, why don't you just go ahead and put in chat wherever you're watching from. Love to know those types of things.
In fact, we've had a first wave.
Oh, a first wave.
So
Tony
it's actually from my brother.
Oh, I was about to ask any relation.
Yeah, so he's up the other end of the country.
Wow.
The other end of the UK. So, good evening, Tony.
Good evening, Tony. Thank you for joining us.
But yeah, so where's everybody else listening, watching from? Yeah, now you're watching or are you listening?
I guess watching at this point. There's a couple. There's a couple places in which audio is broadcast. So Twitter Spaces, and Mixcloud is another one. I've thought about playing around with those, but a lot of them. So Mixcloud is the podcast live. It's like live radio.
Yeah.
And we could do that. It costs money.
Let's not do that
for not a whole lot of return on investment on our part. It's cool.
The Twitter Spaces I've never actually delved into a Twitter Space yet. So I don't know whether I haven't delved in, so I don't know whether it's any good yet or not.
Yeah, well, see, here's my thing with Twitter Spaces. We're actually broadcasting on Twitter as a separate thing, right? You see our video.
Yeah.
I just don't know. So I don't know. I've played around with the idea, and I actually don't know much about Twitter Spaces either. Just something fun that maybe we can try.
Well, I wondered because presumably Twitter Spaces is a takeoff. What was it called? Periscope.
No, it was the other one,
wasn't it?
No, it was the other one. It was I'm drawing a blank, but it's the other chat one. Periscope is like TikTok, but 7 seconds. Or no, wait, no, I'm thinking of Vine. I'm getting all these things mixed up.
I'm fairly sure. I think, and this is rare for me. I think I'm right.
Oh wow. Okay. Well,
no, I'm going to check and then just prove that. Yes, he was. Can I just put that I was right? I was right about something. That doesn't happen often. So that was Periscope was that live streaming app, which was then acquired by Twitter just before it launched, and then which I'm just reading off Wikipedia. But I remember having a go with it. So when I was more involved in politics my first time around, I would sort of when I was walking home, I'd sort of do a bit of a Periscope, and people would come on and ask me questions and stuff. And he's like, no.
Okay, so that's what I was thinking of. It's not a clone, but it's kind of taking the concept of Clubhouse. So that was what it was based on. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's another thing that we should look in. I don't know. We've
I got an early invite to Clubhouse.
Did you?
Yeah, but again, it's just people. It's just people talking, which is kind of ironic for a couple of guys who run podcasts to be complaining about. But it just seemed to be sort of so unstructured and stuff. I don't know, but
you know what? You know what we've been trying to do over on our Discord. If anyone's watching, listening, we've been trying to get in on the Discord chat occasionally throughout the week. So I was in there earlier this week looking at news stories. And that's fun. Sometimes no one shows up, and that's fine too. But sometimes you have this intense discussion, which is awesome.
I missed you this week because what was I doing on Monday night? I can't. It wasn't Monday night. You dropped in, wasn't it? It was that yesterday?
Would have been your Tuesday night.
Yeah,
or it would have been actually like really early AM for you on Wednesday, I think.
Yeah, so that'll be why I missed you then.
Yeah.
As much as I like you, I'm not getting
up
in the morning to chat to you.
There's only so much you can
do. Tony's now in trouble because the sister-in-law's on as well. So that means they're both watching us, that's a bit scary. So evening, Emma. Hope you're having fun.
Okay. Pre-show. Let's see here. We got 20 minutes. We got to pick some. I think our show notes are good, right? Show notes
good. We need to be on. It came from. We need.
Yeah. Oh, my mom's here too.
Oh, it's a family evening, isn't it?
It's a family evening. Hello, everybody.
I was going to say, is this anybody else want to drop in?
Hey, it's okay. If your friends and family don't support you, then who will?
Exactly right.
So,
it's, and I think this is the first time I've been on, and your mum's commented. So, evening, Nick's mum. Hope you enjoy the show.
She. I'm going to call my mom out here. I was talking with her the other day, and she goes, "Who's that nice man you have on the show? I really like him a lot." I go, "Oh, Barry, yeah." So my mom's a fan, Barry.
Woo!
Barry's #1 fan.
Yeah. Well, only fan. So,
not to be confused with OnlyFans.
Yes, that's a different platform again.
We could stream to OnlyFans, I'm sure.
Well, apparently that's what it was originally.
Right, I know.
And it got slightly overtook. And apparently there are serious people who transmit good information on OnlyFans. I just don't know what that sort of looks like.
Right. So, I mean, yeah.
I feel that it would be an experiment that might not work well for us.
Well, that's why we're on Patreon. That's
or really well, which might also be part of the problem.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Anyway, back to where it came from.
Yeah, it came from. We have to do this. Hold on. What I forgot to do also is cite our sources here. So we have. Who's our source this week? Our source is University of Bath.
Yes.
Yeah.
I couldn't find where it came from's folder was, and then realized I just closed the entire thing. So that'd be why.
Oops.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna say University of Bath.
Human factor schooling recommendations. Where should I go?
That one
school.
Again.
Go to school. Yeah.
Any of them are fine. That's my blanket advice. Any of them are fine.
Yeah, just go.
Go. Do it. I mean,
don't not go, because that then you're definitely not going to learn anything about human factors.
I mean, go where it makes sense. Get in with a faculty member that does similar work to what you want to do. That's kind of the biggest thing.
Do you think it's important to? Because in the UK, it's very much of a, if you're going to go to university, that is your leaving home point. You get the best out of university if you leave home and you go. You move. That's your moving away from home point. But then talking about my daughter going to university, she was looking at 2 universities. One was quite close. And I was very much of the, you might go still quite close. It was like 20 minutes on the bus. It's basically where she goes to college already. But you'd still leave home. You'd still be going and moving away because you need to get that experience. And quite frankly, I want your spare room to use as a study. But the, from your perspective, do you think you have to leave home in your piece to make that happen? Or do you think you can quite happily go and stay at home? Or
Well, I didn't. And here in the States, we have things called commuter colleges, and not to be confused with community colleges. So there's community colleges, which are like 2 years to get your associates, which are largely based in communities. And those, a lot of folks do live at home. It's for people who, just coming out of school, don't know exactly like I guess high school here in the States. I don't know if you call it like primary school, or
where does your where does your high school leave?
High school leaves you when you're 18 years old.
That's our 6th form. If you stay in academia, that's your 6th form. So we have secondary, which takes you up to 16, and 6th form that takes you to 18, and then it's university to 21. And then
so I would say here in the States, community colleges are like stepping stones to university, where you can still get an education there. You can still get credit. You can still do classes that get credits applied to your end goal of university. It's kind of like an exploratory phase to like test out a couple different subjects. I mean, you could be very focused if there's just a 2-year degree that you want to. Then there's commuter schools, which are universities proper, but they're placed, kind of in these communities where it makes more sense to commute to them than it would be to like live on campus. So I went to both of those. I went to a community college and a commuter college, and lived at home with mom for a while, mom and dad, and then when I went to graduate school, that's when I moved away and got that. I wouldn't call it the same experience. It was me and my wife, girlfriend at the time. We were just staying in a small duplex, and it's not like we were on campus in the dorms. It was it was us two, and that was it. And so yeah.
No, I never. I did, well, I sort of did the dorms thing. Because I went to military university, then it was very different from seeing what other people go through at normal university. But is how it came from bot broken? Because I don't know how many it came from the past the 4th, and that's
it very well might be.
Oh.
Yeah, that's okay. You know what? We haven't really we didn't do any It Came Froms last week because we had one that was left over, and then we had 2 that were from Discord. So I think we're still okay, and I'll figure out the bot over the next week.
That's good because we've got plenty in the bank.
We could also just go check out the subreddits, which is, always an option. Established professionals. What has gotten you excited about UX and your job over the last quarter? We could easily apply this to human factors. I'm trying to amplify my interest in work right now, and I'm curious what has been getting you going. It's like a motivation question. I like this one. Do you want to do this one?
Yep, sounds good to me. I've got. I just picked up a new job today, which was quite interesting. Completely out of the blue, which was. I'm basically going to be sort of seconded out of I'm seconding myself out of my own company for I think indefinitely at the moment, to go and work on satellite communications. It's going to be quite a laugh.
Ooh, SATCOM. Oh, whiteboarding challenge. Didn't we just cover this a couple weeks ago? I feel like
we did. We done whiteboard challenge. because that's where we come up with the fact that whiteboards just basically solve everything.
Oh my god. Hang on, I got to read the context on this one because it's titled "Long-Term Archive of Research Outputs."
Oh,
question mark. Yeah. And it's, I guess, this is so. When I read this, I was like, "Scientific journals? What are you talking about?" There's I kind of like this one because it's asking how do you store some of these outcomes that you may have found through user research or through competitive research, those types of things. What tools do you use? And yeah, I guess I like that one. They're bringing up some names of tools here, like Miro, wikis that I. How do you feel about this one?
Yeah, go for it. I mean, we used Miro just recently, actually, on a project I'm just finishing up now, and I'm suitably impressed with it. But in terms of that long-term storage piece, that's always
it's challenging.
It's a good one actually, because it's a good one. It's something I've been looking at from a corporate perspective, and how do we stop? Because we get you do your literature reviews on any sort of project and a bit of research that we're doing. How do we do that? So we've come up with our own internal solution, which we can I can also waffle on about. So talk with deep intellect and meaning.
At the definition of waffle. Here in the States, we have whole houses dedicated to waffles.
That's true. There are some. I've got to admit, there are some food options in the States that I'm just quite a fan of. And you do peanut butter better than we do as well. That's got to be said. So I can't eat as much American peanut butter as UK stuff just because it is that bit sweeter.
Sorry, I just thought of a really inappropriate joke that I won't say on air. I'll tell you. I'll tell you in chat.
I'll say you don't record. We don't technically. We could still get booted, I guess, but yeah, I guess that's what the eternal chat's for. Which could still do if the people from Restream are listening. When you have the close option, it would be useful to have a tag on the chat buttons to show that you've got new chats that you haven't seen just there. See that's a bit of reusability advice for Restream.
There you go. Try your private chat there. That's.
But yeah, that's fair comment.
All right.
In fact, yeah, I do have a story about that. One of the first times I visited the States. Yeah, I mean, we'll pick that up some other point. Remind me next time.
Okay.
In the pre-show.
Oh, okay. Oh, did you? Looks like you've gone through and checked. Is this PM micromanagement?
Didn't we talk about that? Let me just go back and.
Oh, maybe we did.
Because that was back up the top, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Um.
Was there any questions in Discord this week?
Yeah, I think we talked about that because I think the answer was yes. Is there anything? Yeah, we should be. The lab should be more fired up about this. And the fact that we have to go trawling for our own questions. We know what do they do all the time. See if that rouses them up and get some comments going.
I am.
We could put the question in the question I put into the Discord chat in.
Yeah, I don't think there was enough answers to really. Not yet, anyway. Right, the week's still young. It's Thursday. It's still young. It feels like this week has been so long, Barry.
Today's been ridiculous. It's been.
Oh man, your today was probably my yesterday. So yesterday, I had a chiropractor appointment that I needed to move earlier in the day, so I went at like noon, and then after that, I sat in a dentist chair for 3 hours.
How?
Yeah, no, and it wasn't even like so notoriously bad dental hygiene. Not anymore. Fixing that, but
good, awesome.
Like, so I've had years of like, build up on my teeth. They had to really get in there, under the gums, and like pull all that stuff out. And it was just horrible. One side. It was just one side. So I got to go back next week, do the other side. Oof. This side is super clean though. And then, here's another kicker. And then I had to come back to work later on that night because we were interviewing somebody. And so like half of my mouth was numb as I was asking questions. And the interview happened that late because we were interviewing somebody in India. And so late time, our time is like morning their time. So trying to accommodate that. So it was a very busy day yesterday. And then my wife and I over the last couple of weeks have been really looking forward to Love is Blind every Friday night. Okay. I don't know if you're familiar with that television program.
No.
It's it basically puts 15 men and 15 women in one facility. Right. And in the middle of this facility, like they can't see each other. That's the big thing. Okay. In the middle of this facility are like, a bunch of pods. And so pods meaning like just like these little seats that you can sit comfortably and talk to the other one through a wall that you can't see through, but you can hear through.
Right. Okay,
and so the whole concept of this show is that can you find true love by talking to someone, connecting on an emotional level? They propose to the other person through the wall without even seeing them. And then they're revealed to each other. And then they're put into like this kind of honeymoon, like almost fantasy situation where they're like, on a beach in Cabo and just having a great time, going on all these great dates. And then they throw them into reality and say, okay, how are you guys going to move in together? How are you going to do all this stuff?
Okay. So a bit light. So,
meet the family. Hey, we just met, a month ago and now we're getting married and like all this stuff. And so it's a great program. And every week they've been releasing a new episode. So the first one, they released 5 episodes. So this was 2 weeks ago. They released 5 episodes. Last week they released 4. And now we're on the finale, which is just 1 episode. That's tomorrow night. We've been looking forward to it. Which is where everybody gets married and ultimately says yes or no, right? Because they've had all this. Yeah. They've had all this time. And I mean, they could have said no really at any point, but this is like the ultimate decision,
make or break.
This is they kind of hype it up, right? They say if you are going to make a decision, make it here at the wedding, so that way we can cause drama around it, all that stuff. All your family's here, get everybody involved, and so it's wonderful. It's a wonderful program.
What's the other program that you guys got? Is it Love at First Sight, Married at First Sight, or something? Where basically they don't meet until they're actually they're friends or something, get them together, and then they meet when actually down the aisle type thing.
Maybe 90 Day Fiance, is that?
Whatever it is, there's something like that. They basically you don't meet until you're at the altar, and you're like that. Why would you even put yourself in for that sort of program? But because
this one's a little bit better, I think, because you can actually get that emotional connection, and a lot of them are genuine.
It's
Married at First Sight.
Married at First Sight, yes, good shout.
Mom put in the clutch.
It's you could definitely stay hanging around because clearly you know more than we do. Watching some of that sort of stuff, and then the other one I'm doing at the moment. Okay, Linda, it's the one where they choose the wedding dress, and they go through all that drama about. Say yes to the dress. That's the one. So that is also just a whole load of drama. And you're sitting there going, oh my god, all of this.
Okay. Here's like a. I don't know if it's not like a dirty little secret or like a hidden secret admission time. I really have a strong appreciation for the editors of these reality TV programs when they leave you with a cliffhanger. Like I've sat there and my wife gets annoyed at me every time because like, you know, there's a cliffhanger, and I'm just like, oh yes, I love this, you know, and it's just like this unadulterated excitement that I just get from these cliffhangers, because I really appreciate the art and craft that these people put into making you want to watch the next episode, and it's just it's really exciting to me.
No, it is. It's quite. I'm quite a sucker for a lot of the reality TV stuff. I think it's the way that it's, and certainly now it's become more of an art form, hasn't it? Because when it sort of first started, it was we'll just show everything, and now it is about the build up, and some of it, it's about if they can do it in a way that makes it feel like it wasn't fake. So you know like it feels like a natural build up, not just a we're just rinsing you for what you can expect. If they can get that bit of craft right, then you're on full.
Yeah. So there's stuff that actually happens, right? And that stuff is interesting. And the, obviously the producers will put these people in situations that cause drama a lot of times. But even with that said, you still don't know what the outcome is going to be a lot of the time. Mm. And so, the appreciation comes for the people who can really turn those stories into something that are fun and entertaining to watch, and just, I am not exaggerating, right? Like stand up and I like, yes, oh, that was so good, so good. And my wife's just annoyed because she's like, yeah, but we got to wait a week to watch the rest of it. And I'm like, yes, that's exactly the point. That's it. They knew. That was
talk about it and everything. But, we just had another comment from Abigail. So Abby's my niece. So I've got the entire family joining us.
You got the entire family joining.
They're all coming in. So evening, Abby. Hope you're well. Great to see you.
We still need one where it came from, right?
I think we should just sack the whole lot off and just make this now a
reality TV show,
a reality TV podcast, and make that work.
All right, done. Let's wrap the notes.
Just delete it, and we'll just pick shows from the off and just where we go. No, we need. So we got them to.
Let's pick one from the bank because we've
got one in the bank. Actually, that one around. So the top of page 12, the sign up ultra prominent, but signing gets buried.
When you say 12, page 12, I'm like, oh shoot, we have 19 pages of show notes. I don't think people realize how detailed these show notes can be.
It actually changes occasionally.
Yeah. What? Sorry, which one?
So sign up. So why sign up ultra prominent nowadays, but signing gets buried? I don't actually know the answer to that. But because on the scheduler that you've set up for people coming in, that's got exactly that same problem. But also,
let's talk about it. We can offer our expert opinions.
I didn't realize I've got to have an expert opinion. I've got an opinion.
All right.
I wouldn't go anywhere near expert.
Hey, you do human factors in your everyday, right?
That's true. Yeah.
You expert. Okay. There we go. All right. Cool. So let me just write a couple notes here, and I think we can. Thank you for fixing that. I appreciate that. Yeah, we can get this show on the road. About what are we talking about today? We're talking about what gets you excited?
About organizing it all, because I kind of want the new sections to start on a new page, but that's only because that's where I write my documents. It's not much use as a show note piece.
Are you saying we should make new sections on the next page?
I don't think we have to, but it might. You might come in one time and I might have already done it because that's what I do. I'll leave that as a surprise for you.
I don't care, as long as I can see, because there's I don't like scrolling a whole lot. I like to make sure that the stuff is readily available for when I need it.
And that's kind of why I haven't done it, because it is actually easy just to scroll down. In fact, for things like this, it's useful for not to have pages at all, and just to have a long scroll. But then that's not really why it's made, is it? We should ask Google to redo their entire app just for us.
think I have a rough outline. I just got to make sure I say this right. What gets you excited about UX? Gets us excited and motivated.
And it's past, so we should be going.
Yep. All right. All right. Are you ready to go? Is everybody watching ready to go?
Born ready.
Okay. We are going to go live, which means when we come back, we're going to do the show, and it's going to be a great show for you. And we'll be back right after this thing right here.
Welcome to Human Factors Cast, your weekly podcast for human factors, psychology, and design.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Human Factors Cast. This is episode 236. We're recording this live on February 24th, 2022. I'm your host, Nick Roome, joined today by Mr. Barry Kirby.
Hey, Nick. It's great to hear you.
Oh, thanks, Barry. Really appreciate that one. We got a great show for you tonight, barring no technical issues. We'll be talking about what the term mental health really means and its impact on human factors. And later, we're going to answer some questions from the community about what gets us excited and motivated about human factors, UX, your job in general, how to store research at your work, and our opinions on sign up versus sign in. But first, here's a programming note for you all. We are going to have some upcoming coverage of the Human Factors Healthcare Symposium. This is something that we've done over the last couple years. Currently, we're finalizing some plans with leadership to bring you a preview of what to expect. We're going to do that sometime soon. But I do want to mention that we have asked in our Discord chat if there's anything specific that you all want to hear about. Let us know there. And that kind of goes for conference coverage in general. If there's any sort of things that you find most valuable about when we go out to conferences and come back, whether it's the interviews, whether it's talking about specific presentations that we went to, whether it's hearing about the program and what the experience was like, we want to hear about that because we want to produce content that's relevant to you and that you'll get something out of. Anyway, I think that's all I have for notes. So why don't we go ahead and get into the news? That's why you're here. Yes, it's Human Factors News. I don't need to do this. You've been here. If you've been here, you know what this is. Barry, what is the news story this week?
So the standards are just slacking now. The story this week is researchers call for greater clarity over what constitutes a mental health problem. So a new review of the theoretical models used around the world to assess, diagnose, research, and treat mental health problems has highlighted the vast array of approaches which exist. So by examining over 100 publications which refer to mental health or mental illness in some way, the researchers have identified 34 different theoretical models used by practitioners, researchers, and users of mental health services to understand the nature of mental health problems. Importantly, they found that there was no criteria which could be used to prioritize why one model might be used over another. This really matters, they say, because how mental health problems are understood has lasting ramifications for how people with mental health problems are assessed and supported. In view of the wide range of models that are used by practitioners, the researchers are now calling for greater clarity over how different and potentially contrasting mental health models can be used in practice. They argue that this debate needs greater input from non-medical professionals and service users. So, Nick, we've talked about mental health issues a number of times over the past few episodes. What are your thoughts on this greater call for engagement from the wider community?
Yeah, this one's tricky. Obviously, mental health has been on my mind lately. And I'm really glad that we found a topic to kind of channel some of this discussion. I think a couple weeks ago, Frank, who's a previous guest on the show, mentioned in Discord that this would be an awesome topic to talk about. And he said that after hearing about my experience with ADHD. And I'm just glad we found a story that goes well. In terms of my thoughts on how we define mental health and what their mentioning here, I absolutely think this is true. I think when you think about mental health, or when the common person thinks about mental health, they think about issues, or sort of non-neurotypical uh, thoughts, behaviors, actions, all these things. And so when we define mental health, we need to make sure that that is kind of treated equivalent to our physical health, right? When you think about being in a good physical shape, meaning, you don't get winded doing basic activities like myself, um, or basically that you are exercising your body, and that is physical health. And mental health, we need to think about exercising our mind and making sure that we are in a good place psychologically. I've gone on quite a bit about my initial general impressions of the article. Barry, what are you thinking about this?
I think it's really insightful, because I think it's a really long overdue review. The whole mental health piece is still, we treat it like we know everything about it, right? That all we need to do is, you go and do some exercise, or you throw some drugs at it and stuff like that. And we kind of have this perception that it's well and so, but actually this highlights that we're still very much feeling our way around it. We still don't truly know. We're kind of dealing with the symptoms rather than the causes, because it's still a lot of work to be done. And that, combined with the stigma around mental health, there is still a huge amount of stigma around mental health. And I like to think that it's born out of ignorance rather than malice. That a lot of the stigma is there just because we don't truly understand what's going on. But the idea that this review gives us or has highlighted the fact that we don't have a decent structure to be able to assess which are the right models to be applying to different causes, different ideas, I think it is really good. So it feels like a starting point. It feels like there's still a lot of work to be done. And I think it's probably worth diving into some of those issues around mental health, their understanding. So I was wondering if you could give us a bit of any sort of insights.
Yeah, I do want to kind of preface our discussion today. I know a lot of people are probably listening and saying, well, what does mental health really have to do with human factors? We're going to jump into that. But really, I want to kind of understand the foundation of mental health. And I'm not going to read this verbatim, but I'm going to jump around a little bit. This is from mentalhealth.gov, which is, I would imagine, a government-funded effort to understand mental health. And so I think when we kind of think of our traditional understanding of mental health, this is kind of what they're saying, right? It includes our emotional, psychological, social well-being. It affects how we think, feel, act. It also helps determine how we handle stress, relate to others, and make choices. And this is a really important thing at every stage of life, from childhood and adolescence all the way through adulthood. And they go on to say, over the course of your life, if you experience mental health problems, basically your thinking, your mood, or behavior could be affected because of what's going on in your head. And there's a lot of different things that go into mental health, right? So like biological factors, genes, brain chemistry, those types of things, life experiences, trauma is a big one. Abuse is another big one, or family history with mental health issues. Or I shouldn't say issues. Mental health problems is what they say here. So obviously, one big caveat to all this: help is available. There are resources available, and we'll link some of those on the description of the show notes here. But I beyond sort of the textbook definition of mental health, I do want to kind of mention that some interesting stats here. All of us, everyone on this planet, has mental health, and that's something to remember. We all have this mental health. And when you think about everybody on the planet, approximately 25% of us will experience some difficulty with mental health. And, for like getting into my personal story, I didn't realize that something was wrong until I started reading other people's experiences around, for me, it's ADHD. And I didn't understand that thinking in certain patterns, or hyper-focusing on something, or sort of rationing out in my brain these certain things weren't neurotypical. And it was very surprising to me. And I mean, statistics like this kind of go to show it. I didn't know I was one of those four. And so I don't know. There's help available. We'll link that. But anything to add to the understanding of what mental health is before we kind of get into the human factor side of this whole topic?
No, I think actually it's almost just to reinforce that last piece of what you said is that mental health and mental health problems are clearly they're related, but just having an appreciation of your mental health, everybody needs to do it in the same way that we think about fitness, or maybe I should think about that fitness thing a bit more. And eating healthily, again, I need to do more of that. We need to think about more about our mental health and that type of thing. Just because we what I quite like is the fact that now the term mental health is so common in our vocabulary, and actually younger generations as well are much more aware of mental health, and the fact that you need to be aware of it is a really, really good thing. And I would just strongly encourage everybody to be just willing to talk about it, because it's, like I said, it's something that we want to hide, because as you quite rightly say, everybody has mental health, and we need to keep that healthy and be self-aware. As you said, there's issues that I've not realized have been going on until you reflect somebody else's position, and it can be quite a scary thing to try and talk about and admit such things. But I think these things are getting easier. Anyway, should we dive into some of the how mental health affects human factors?
Yes, let's do it. Do you want to just kind of give us a brief state of mental health and human factors, and then we can kind of dive into some specific examples?
Yeah, there's some. So to look at the generic bit, there's many applications for applying human factors to mental health care, but there's actually not a lot on how mental health impacts our ability to do things, or how to use things, perform our jobs, monitor systems. There is a decent resource at humanfactors101.com, where they talk about mental well-being in the workplace, particularly through COVID-19. But it's worth highlighting some of the obligations, particularly for an employer, what you've got to be aware of. So employers do have a responsibility to ensure the mental well-being of their staff, and actually that's quite a sensible thing, isn't it? Because certainly given a lot of what we're doing, you'd think that it would be a number one priority. In many countries, employers have a legal duty to ensure the health and safety of workers. So here in the UK, we have the Health and Safety at Work Act, that requires employers to secure the health, including mental health, safety and welfare of employees whilst at work. And amongst other things, basically provide a safe place of work, ensure you've got safe systems of work, and provide information and training. And interestingly, we've just done our annual training on this type of thing, which is quite good. In Australia, organisations have obligations to do what is reasonably practicable to eliminate or minimise work-related risks to health and safety. This would include any psychological risks created by COVID-19. So, but it is worth noting that all the laws only set a minimum standard. There's nothing to stop you going above and beyond these by setting greater improvements across a whole range of measures if you want to take additional actions. But a recent study by the World Health Organization estimated that depression and anxiety disorders cost the global economy over $1 trillion each year in lost productivity. So there's clear business benefits to be able to manage mental well-being, alongside, and that's aside from the moral and legal issues. So, fundamentally, there is a drive on employers to not only look at the physical safety of what you're doing, but the mental health application as well.
Yeah,
it would be easy to do, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I want to jump in here. So, thank you for covering the UK side of the house. I want to mention the US side of the house for a second. So we have something similar. We have Occupational Safety and Health Administration. That's OSHA, and they have a bunch of standards for workplace. And when you think about mental health, that's maybe. I don't want to call it a gap. It's not a gap in OSHA. They have it covered in several standards. I'm looking at one right now, 1904.5, which is specifically looking at determination of work relatedness. And so if you want to go look it up and read it for yourself, you can. But I'm just going to kind of briefly mention here that when they mention mental health in this capacity, they're basically asking if there's a situation where an injury or illness occurs in the workplace, that is sort of work related, right? So is it related? Is it covered under one of these things? If the illness is a mental illness, it's not considered work related unless the employee voluntarily provides the employer with an opinion from a physician or other licensed therapist or professional who can basically vouch that the mental illness is work related. And so when you think about it from the US side, we don't really have that same kind of protection in place, which is not great.
How do you define the difference? And I know we sort of get into discussion to a certain extent, but how do you really define the difference between whether something is a mental health issue is work related or not? Because it's so, from a mental perspective, how it's you can't compartmentalize between life and home life in that way, can you?
Look, I mean, if you get a therapist to sign off on it, then you're good. But the issue is that there's no obligation, there's no standard that is meant for mental health that says an employer has an obligation to protect the mental health of their employees. So that's just a picture from the US side of things. I just wanted to mention that in relation to your previous points there. I do want to jump into kind of well-being at work in general. And so, a lot of these, you mentioned it, right? There's little separation between work-life balance in some cases, and how do you really pick apart which one's which? There's a lot of aspects of work that kind of contribute to some of these mental health issues. And, as we saw with the pandemic over the last couple of years, this has really kind of flared up a lot of it. There's additional impacts on people in the workplace now. People are working from home. There's different family dynamics that are happening now between people who maybe weren't at home before and are at home now, and there's children in the picture, and it's a whole mess. But I want to kind of get away from the COVID situation because there's a lot of application here outside in like a typical working environment as well, and there's a whole laundry list here of ways in which the working environment can support well-being or lead to mental health issues. And I want to mention a couple of these just right off the top, just to kind of go through this list almost, and maybe we can pick apart some of our favorites, but I'm going to read off just a couple here. So there's a lack of clarity about roles and responsibilities can contribute to mental health issues. Changes to those roles, routines, procedures, or expectations set on employees, longer working hours, extra shifts, overtime, changes to work location, so like working from home, being not able to take annual leave. That's also a contributing factor here. Increased workload, work pressures, obviously those types of things. Taking on additional duties, responsibilities with insufficient training. Increased threat of workplace discrimination, aggression, or violence from customers, clients, or patients. Fear in the workplace. They talk about this in relation to COVID-19, but I imagine this applies to other things about sexual identity, gender, all those types of things as well. Concerns about exposure to COVID-19 while on public transport. I argue that that's outside of the workplace, but still relevant because you need public transport to get there. More COVID-19 specific stuff. Uncertainty about your employment. So that's another big one. Financial worries due to unstable or reduced employment, extended absence due to furlough, rapid decision making that is required of the employees, logistical issues, obtaining materials, making difficult choices in healthcare settings. Wow, that's a heavy hitting one. We got the healthcare symposium coming up, y'all, if you want to hear about some of those. Serious illness or death of work colleagues, and witnessing the serious illness or death of patients in the healthcare sector. So, wow, that is a huge list. There's other factors too. We'll get into those in a minute. Barry, I want to talk to you really quick. Are there a couple in this list that you want to focus on a little bit and talk through?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the two that hit is the working longer hours, and that really links in with this working from home around COVID. And so we're going to have the new normal, whatever the new hybrid working looks like, and I think that's going to be going for a while. And there's a bunch of things around the whole working from home piece that that a lot of people are saying, "Oh, you should get back to the office," this, that, and the other. But in some respects, there's a level of me agreeing with that, because people tend to overwork when they're at home. So if they're at home, particularly if their home setup is maybe on the dining room table, or it's at the end of the living room, it's a desk in the same room as where you socialize. People end up generally working longer hours than what you would do in the office, because the office, you can put the computer down, you leave, and you go. Whereas if with the whole working from home, people have found that you're going to be working longer hours. So I think that whole change into the work location mixed with the longer hours actually is something that you can see how that would burn people out and make that go longer. So I think that is something we should particularly be aware of. I've got a bit of a bandwagon thing at the moment about whatever this new normal looks like. We need to work out about how to ensure people's safety at home, not just physical safety, but that our mental health safety. Around that, just around the bits that you work, because I think it's easy to guilt people into working longer. Is there anything in there that particularly tickled your fancy?
Yeah, there's a couple. It's hard reading through this list and not trying to identify with some of them, because at some point I've identified with a lot of these, barring some of the more serious ones in like a healthcare setting. But I think certainly a lot of us have experienced some sort of lack of clarity around roles and responsibilities, especially as human factors practitioners. I think a lot of times it's our job to kind of come up with who's doing what and how that whole process happens.
Exactly.
And so, that comes with the job, but it's also kind of, I guess, unsettling to not know something set in stone. Another one that's interesting to me and relevant to me is uncertainty about employment. Like, I have in my head, I have a network of connections. I'm not afraid of finding another job, but when you work on contract work, it's sort of this really intense pressure on you to not only finish up the project that you're working on, but to find another job in that same time frame.
Yep.
So that way you have continued work afterwards. And I know that has burned out a lot of colleagues of mine, that uncertainty about employment with continuing on through contract work. And that's kind of another one that I wanted to bring up. And I'm bringing these up through the lens of human factors professionals. You can kind of look at this list and think of a lot of different things that can really impact your ability to work and your mental health. And that's kind of what we're talking about here, right? All these are human factors issues. All these can be solved with human factors applications, right? Well,
absolutely,
most of them anyway. Let's talk about other impacts that kind of contribute to mental health, but maybe outside the workplace, but could still impact your performance at work. So in the case of the pandemic, right, we all have social isolation from family, from friends, sort of an increase in domestic violence. That is something that we saw numbers spike early days of the pandemic, because everyone was not used to being in the same space. It's really sad. You also have sort of pressures for caring for independence, sick relatives, those types of things, childcare, homeschooling, and employment. All these things are kind of competing interests for time and energy. You have illness or bereavement for family and friends, and this is especially true during the pandemic as well. And kind of just a general note to kind of top off this whole section here. Basically, when you have poor mental well-being or poor mental health, or whatever you're attributing, whatever you're calling it, your ability to perform some of these everyday duties is compromised. A lot of these are influencing your human performance, right? If you think about human factors terms, it's weakening your human performance in the workplace and in your personal life as well. And so if you address some of these factors, any of these factors, really, it's going to improve that reliability of the human to do their job, and really just function properly, right? If you think about a human functioning, to the ability to function properly is probably what we're talking about most here. And this if you think about sort of jobs with high risk or high safety critical incidents, like, I don't know, a pilot or a doctor or, TSA or something where, it really is mission critical that you are on in 100% good health, or firefighter, any one of these first responders. There could be a variety of different professions in which, these contributing factors are really going to make or break even saving a life. And so we got to think about all these things holistically, all these different issues that impact mental health, and then also how mental health impacts our performance on the job. Okay, I've talked a lot. Barry, I want to give you an opportunity to kind of clean up if there's anything in this section before we kind of move on to actually discussing the article itself.
Yeah, I think this really does highlight, really there is a strong responsibility as an employer and colleagues actually to look out for each other. But we should be driving in the same way as we do from a physical aspect. We encourage the right setup of the desk. We do DSE assessments, all that type of stuff from a health and safety perspective, and we physically ensure that our employees and our staff and our colleagues physically are set up to do this properly. We should also be doing this from a mental health perspective, and we as human factors practitioners are in an ideal position to push that through. And really, the argument to the employer should be quite easy, because as you quite rightly just said, if we're suffering from not necessarily mental health, mental health problems as such in the full-on form, but even just that poor mental health well-being, our performance isn't on top. So therefore, we're not being as productive as we could be in the workplace. So there is a value for money thing there for employers to ensure that everyone's in tip-top mental health form, because you'll be more productive. So that argument sits. So I think we as human factors practitioners probably have a bit of a job to do in flying this banner a bit more than possibly we have been doing to date.
That is a huge understatement. So we're cutting content for time, but if you're sticking around on our live version, or if you're listening to this later, our patrons get the full audio version. If you're listening to this later, listen to the post show, or go find us our post show on any of our video platforms. We're going to be talking about things like risk assessment, communication, consultation, work design, mental well-being, resources, all that stuff as it relates to human factors issues on this story. We just got to cut a little bit for time, but I do want to make sure we do have some time to talk about the article itself. So getting back to this main issue of how do we categorize mental illness, or how do we define it? And sort of also, how do we sort of standardize these models, right? For a lot of us, in terms of our knowledge from a psych background, right? We know of the DSM, and that's kind of like, I don't want to say the Bible, but it is a reliable source for some of these maybe more abnormal. I don't even want to say abnormal. It's a less typical neurodivergent mental health patterns. And so there's that. But I think what this article is saying is that we need to go beyond that. We need to look at some of these models themselves and talk about what are mental health problems, what counts as a mental illness, what kind of impacts do these have within healthcare, those types of things. Barry, are there any sort of cherry-picked talking points that you want to bring out from this article itself?
So I think there's the one element that you just touched on there is being very almost careful in our language, or allowing us to define that language a bit better around what are things around just mental health, about allowing us to be more reflective on mental health, and what helps and detracts, gives us better or worse mental health in of itself, in the same way that going for a run will make you a bit fitter and all that sort of stuff. So just general, how do we affect that, and then get into the difference between, right, well, what's a problem, what's an illness, and really being able to define that in the same way as we would physically. But what I thought was interesting around the article was bit at the end is the fact that we have a broad range of perspectives around who does this, and what the researchers are suggesting is that rather than just engaging with doctors and specialists, we should bring in opinions from those people who are outside. So from the people who use the services, and what they highlight is that could be a real issue for them in the long term, but actually might be a way to go in the short term. What about you, Nick? Is there anything there that strikes you that we should be highlighting before we finish this bit?
Yeah, I do want to kind of follow up on that point, right? Of not necessarily counting on specialists and researchers, but asking service users which model they feel to be most appropriate for them, right? And I think kind of it's almost like democratization of models. And I think that's really helpful, right? You think about these models as like tools in a toolkit, not necessarily the end all be all. And when you kind of take that approach, people can sort of think about mental health in the way that's best suited to them. And the one thing that this might have consequentially is you might think that the non-medical models might become a little bit more important or quote unquote important than than some of these clinicians would be willing to accept, because it is kind of based on the subjective experience of the person. There's all sorts of models, right? There's biological, psychological, social models, and if you think about these models kind of fracturing, right? The researchers are showing that these types of models are fracturing into different submodels, if you will, and they're thinking about this field being dominated by psychiatry, psychology. You really need to bring in the perspectives of the people who are actually experiencing these issues and other professionals in other settings like nurses or social workers who experience this on a day-to-day basis, and you need to have them be heard to kind of incorporate their feedback into this larger discussion about what constitutes mental health. Yeah, I think that's really all I had about the article. Barry, any other closing thoughts?
No, not in particular. I think it's a really good, I think, starting point. I like the idea in this particular element that we are, we spent a long time developing approaches and different bits. Now feels like an appropriate time to go back to basics, almost restructure, look at refresh of what we're doing, and to see whether we now know more and can apply things better. So I look forward to hopefully at some point, maybe 6 months time or something, being able to maybe revisit this and seeing where we've got to with it. It feels like an exciting time.
Yeah, I agree. I do want to just pose the question to you in Barry's words. How would you define mental health?
Oh dear me.
Put you on the spot.
I clever Barry wouldn't. But no, for me, it's the whole. It's everything that we do as it's what defines us actually as people, because everything that it's about us feeling comfortable with ourselves and what we do on a day-to-day basis. Because if you're feeling comfortable with being and free enough to express yourself, do what it is that you want to do, work in the way that you want to work, and just generally exist in a way that is, it doesn't necessarily have to be exciting to you all the time, but just content. I think that means everything is sort of in equilibrium in some way, and so it's still that it's still a big unknown for me. There's loads of different definitions, and I'm going to bow out at this point.
Damn, Barry, you stole my answer. No, I think ultimately, if you think about mental health, to me, you kind of hit it with that equilibrium comment. You're going to experience a wide range of either ailments or sort of phases where there's little to no issues or problems that you experience. And I think to me, what healthy mental health is is somewhere right in the middle where you don't let one strong feeling on either side of that gamut really pull you in the direction so hard that everything else in your life is kind of impacted by it. That is the simplest way I can put it. I'm not an expert. Barry's an
Definitely
expert,
not expert.
but not in mental health. We're not mental health experts. Let's put it that way. And so with that, I think we kind of handled this delicately. There's a larger conversation to be had. I'm excited because we got to talk about it in a human factors lens. But with that, let's move on. I just want to thank our patrons this week for selecting this topic. We've been looking for a mental health topic for a while. And thank you to our friends over at University of Bath for our news story this week. If you want to follow along, we do post the links to all the original articles on the weekly roundups that we put on our blog. You can also join us in our Discord for more discussion on these stories. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back to see what's going on in the human factors community right after this.
Human Factors Cast brings you the best in human factors news, interviews, conference coverage, and overall fun conversations into each and every episode we produce. But we can't do it without you. The Human Factors Cast network is 100% listener supported. All the funds that go into running the show come from our listeners. Our patrons are our priority, and we want to ensure we're giving back to you for supporting us. Pledges start at just $1 per month and include rewards like access to our weekly Q&As with the hosts, personalized professional reviews, and Human Factors Minute, a Patreon-only weekly podcast where the hosts break down unique, obscure, and interesting human factors topics in just 1 minute. Patreon rewards are always evolving, so stop by patreon.com/humanfactorscast to see what support level may be right for you. Thank you, and remember, it depends.
Yes, huge thank you as always to our patrons. Especially want to thank our honorary Human Factors Cast staff patrons, Michelle Tripp. I do want to mention, we always talk about Patreon. And I want to mention another resource for you all. I think one thing that kind of goes often undiscovered is our website. We have an awesome website with a bunch of functionality built in for you all. You can do all sorts of fun stuff over there. So some of the things that are kind of standard for most podcast websites, you got detailed show notes, including links to any guests that were on this week, some embedded YouTube videos that kind of link up with the episodes so you can see how handsome Mr. Barry is. And, we also got other things on there. Aside from the podcasting stuff that we do, all the stuff that comes out of the Digital Media Lab, that's what we put on our website. So we have news roundups, weekly roundups, monthly roundups, and this is a good opportunity to check in with some of the other stories that we may not cover on the show. We used to do 3 stories, I think, in 1 week on the show, which actually was kind of insane now that I think about it, because it was there's no way you could cover those in depth. And now that we're doing 1 story a week, I think it's much, much better. There's, let's see here. Like I said, additional information on our guests. There's deep dives onto different topics that we have. And there's ways to submit your own stories on our website. So if you come across something that's human factors related, you want us to talk about it, you want us to know about it, there's a way for you to submit it there. You can go in, search all the episodes for content. If you want to learn more about mental health, you can go to our website and search it. We have conference recaps on there. I'm going on, right? It's just, if it's been a minute since you've checked out our website, or if you don't know that we even have a website, go check it out. It's humanfactorscast.media. It's a .media website. It's not .com, but humanfactorscast.media. Again, we'll put the link in the show notes. But again, a really valuable resource. Just wanted to make sure that the community knows about it. Speaking of the community, we're gonna get into this next part of the show we like to call, if I can find the thing, there it is.
It came from.
Yes, it came from. This is the part of the show where we search all over the internet, or we've already searched. It's not like we're actively searching in this part of the show. We've already searched. We got it for you. And this is where we find topics that the community is talking about. If you find any of these useful, be sure to give us a like to help other people find this content. Okay, we got 3 up this week. First one is a question for established professionals. What has gotten you excited about UX and your job in the last quarter? This is from Hither and Yon on the user experience subreddit. We're going to apply this to human factors as well. As the subject says, I'm just trying to amplify my interest in work right now, and I'm curious what's been getting you going. So, Barry, how do you stay motivated at work, and how do you stay motivated in human factors and with your job in general?
So the human factors bit is easy, I think, because everything that we do, because you can apply what we do to pretty much anything. Then a lot of the fun bit around human factors is getting the nitty gritty of, right, what are human issues around, be this anything to do with, like, say, an unmanned system, or all the way through to a piece of equipment in your kitchen. There's generally that bit, but around the job itself, I keep myself motivated by not having my project being too long, and about having more than one thing on the go at any one time. And so generally, as much as I love all of my projects, and they're all like small children to me, and I care for them dearly, some of them can get a bit annoying. And that happens with any sort of long project. And a long project for me is maybe, typically say maybe 18 months to 2 years. And so if I've got something going like that, I generally like to have something else to, at least one other to put into the mix. And that means that when you're getting maybe a bit tired of one project, rather than having to keep slogging on with it, you can take a break by going to do something else, and keep mixing it up. And I think that's generally what you got to do is mix up what you do. Our field allows us to basically take on a broad variety of jobs that just keeps everything fresh, and you'll find a new problem, a new issue, and ways of applying what you do generally into a new domain. So yeah, I think that is one of the massive selling factors about human factors and UX, is the fact that we are so broadly applicable that if you get bored or you get frustrated or whatever happens in one domain or job or something else, you can then go on and do the same thing somewhere else quite easily. What about you, Nick? What gets you excited about your job?
That's a great question. And I want to comment on one of your points there about our work in general is working on a bunch of different things. And you're right, except in the case where you are working for a company and it's one product. There's still variety within the product, but you're still working on the same thing. And I think that is a little harder to maintain sort of this excitement and motivation to keep going. And really, you do have to take the approach that you're talking about here, is find new things that get you excited about it. And, that really hasn't been an issue for me, but I know some excitement about the product is not the issue. I think the motivation is within human factors is maybe a bigger issue. And I think, for it's easy for us. We have a podcast every week that we discuss human factors. It gives me that outlet to discuss topics that maybe I'm not working on, and still gives me kind of that excitement of connecting over another topic. So I still get my fix, right? So I guess my advice would be, like, talk to other people who maybe aren't working on the same thing that you're working on. And if you hear about the way that they talk about it, then you might get excited about that topic again, right? So, like, I don't know, you're working on a product. Let's just, I don't know, you press a button, it does something. That's very simple, right? But what if that something is so beneficial to that person's job? I'm describing a user here, by the way. So beneficial to that person's job that they would love to have that button. They just want that button. Well, then your motivation should be to make that button the best button it could be in the right place, so that way that person can do their job. Bad analogy, probably. I don't know. I get motivated talking to the people who actually use the product. That's my point. I get motivated by talking to users, to the work that we're doing actually matters. I think that is the part that really just gets me to get up in the morning. All right, let's get into this next one here. This one's titled Long-Term Archive of Research Outputs. This is by Fox91, again on the user experience subreddit here. they're wondering what other teams use to store their past research efforts, whether this is customer research, competitive analysis, or something like that. They have a wiki at their company, which works, but it's not really conducive to holding all the artifacts and such. However, it is nice because with the wiki search, it makes it at least able to find an older test or a project. They use Miro, which is another tool, for some of their work, but they're finding that other than titles, you can't really search within the boards, so work gets lost over time. Barry, storage of work and artifacts is incredibly important because there might be something that you've worked on in the past that you need to go and look at. What are your thoughts on storage of documents and information at work?
So you're absolutely right. It is important because it's the potential. It's not necessarily you're going to lose stuff, but you don't gain the advantage you could get by being able to quickly call up the stuff that you've done before and be able to reuse previous stuff. And you might be just crying out for stuff, and you've actually already got it within. You've already got it within your ecosystem somewhere. So we've had this problem within my company. In fact, quite recently, it's something I've actually been trying to solve over about 10 years now about the thing. I've almost come to a perfect solution for us. We've also highlighted a couple of tools there already. We use SharePoint, the Microsoft tool, and really what we've done, and you could do this with, it doesn't have to be SharePoint. I don't think it could be. You could do it in Google Drive and things like that as well. But we've set up the way that we deal with projects in a not in a closely regimented format, but in a way that we can pick up a project, show that it's live, but when it then dies down and finishes, that we can archive that project in such a way that nothing truly disappears. We do a cleanup job on the project now because it's within our process. So you get rid of all of the the nif, naf, and trivia, the various document evolutions that you've had. So the stuff that you're definitely not going to use, but we still keep all the project artifacts and all the deliverables that we have. We actually extract into a different repository within that same site. So that allows us to use the global search function, which will then dive into not only the different document names and the titles, but actually search within the documents themselves, which has just proven now really, really powerful. And actually, it was this week that I was then searching for something, some research, or it was a topic around simulation, and we actually did some simulation work about 8 years ago that I'd completely forgotten about. And because we've done this reorganization, I was able to search for it, and it popped up. And I was like, oh yeah. And this works on two levels. One is not only the work that you've done, so the final reports you produced, the artifacts you produced, but if you're doing some sort of literature review, you might have reviewed literature already that you've kind of just forgotten about because it was 10 years ago. But you keep that literature in a repository and be able to pull that out as well. So yeah, for me, that the newer cloud technologies are working really, really well. Like I said, we now use SharePoint in the way that it flows, and I think it's certain. The evolution just in the past 12 months has been quite phenomenal. So yeah, that's my solution, and I'm very evangelical about it because it now works for me, which it hasn't done in the past. What about you, Nick? What do you use for your long-term archive?
This it came from, brought to you by SharePoint. I've used a variety of different things in the past. I've used wikis. I've used shared drives where stuff gets lost in folders and it's really inefficient. I've used wikis where people don't check the pages and it's really inefficient. I've used SharePoint where people don't know where to store things or where things are stored and it's really inefficient. The thing that I think I want you to take away from this is it's not necessarily the tool or the way in which you store the information. It's who's using it. Are they trained to use it? And can you find stuff on it? There's probably an optimal way. I think Barry's way is probably fine and probably works best for their company. But like for me, what I've found success with is when you have everybody using something like a wiki. You can store things on a wiki. You can link to other repositories and have information on there, an archive, if you will, of past projects that have worked well. You can also implement a tagging system. If you know something was like a results or an outcomes brief, you can tag it outcomes or results, or keep it consistent. But whatever it is, you can tag it and then search across all of your stuff and say, okay, well, here's results from this project. Or, if you have a certain project that you're doing for a certain contract, get a hashtag for that contract. HFC 2022, Human Factors Cast 2022, right? And that way you can see all the things that were associated with that project, and be consistent about it. Put it in the file name. So that way, you might need to look for the methods that you did for HFC 2022, and you can type in hashtag methods, hashtag HFC 2022, go back and find it really easily, because you have put it in the file name or, at the header of the document. And if it has robust enough search, if your platform has robust enough search, it will find that really easily. That tagging is really crucial too, especially when it comes to user feedback. But that's a whole other separate thing. You can that's not file storage, that's analysis. We'll get into that another time. That's my thoughts on it. I don't know.
Well, just before you do that, I think the most important bit that probably both of us come out with is none of this happens by accident. It takes a little bit of planning, it takes a little bit of thought, it might take a little bit of evolution, but it does take don't like the process word, but it does take a little bit of agreeing a process and working with it and then briefing everybody else into it so everybody uses it in the same way, no matter what platform you use. Get the process right, and then everything else, actually you reap the rewards later on.
Yeah, agree. This last one is something that we don't typically do, but we're going to do it anyway. This question is, why is sign up ultra prominent nowadays, but sign in gets buried? This is by Adequate Elderberry on the user experience subreddit. We don't typically talk about UI stuff too much. They say, hello, UX folks. I've noticed over some time that a lot of popular platforms seem to be making account creation procedures more and more central, bolder, eye-catching, etc. The reasoning here is not too hard to understand. They all want more users and are streamlining the processes. But I'm baffled why they often do it at the expense of a login procedures for existing accounts. It's gotten to the point where I'm actually annoyed having to look up some small non-bold sign-in text link in the upper right-hand corner or something like that. I also noticed that the wording in general seems to shift from register/login to sign in versus sign up, which brings no obvious advantage, but is more likely to get mixed up. So please tell me from a professional human factors or UX perspective, is there any underlying rationale behind some of these developments that escapes my layman's awareness, as there is so often in UX?
So from my perspective, I think it's the majority of it is because we now make so much use of auto sign-in. The actual times you go and click in the actual sign-in button is so limited compared to when you first land on something, and they really want to drive you into to signing up and moving forward. Especially now, there's a whole lot of prominence around using either your Google ID, your Facebook ID, or Apple ID, all the other IDs that already exist. They're trying to get you to chain in with that. And because when you normally now go on it and you'll be auto logged in if you've already signed up, then chances of you seeing that page are actually slim, very, very low now. There is an interesting flip on this. That there are some pages out there now, some sites out there that in fact we've used recently that actually just trying to find the sign up element is really, really difficult, yet the sign in is really prominent, which seems to fly in the face of this to a certain extent. But that also does seem to be a bit of a trend which I can't justify in my head as easily as I can justify this one. But yeah, I think for me that fundamentally that's why it is because so many people don't really actually see the login page now because we do the auto sign in. Nick, have you got a different take to
that? No, I have the same take. I think the other piece of this that I don't know, it's probably a back end thing, honestly, but I don't understand why at this point in 2022 we can't just put in our credentials, what we think they are, and if they exist, log in. Great, found a user for this username. Great. If they don't exist, hey, would you like to make an account? And it's just all one unified login. That's my grumbly take. I think more seriously, there's I think you're right. There's sort of everyone's going to be logged into these systems 90% of the time, and the 10% of the time that you're not, you just gotta do a little hunting. And they've kind of weighed that with the sort of benefit of having one of these sign up things available and easy to get to, so that way people get in their system. That's ultimately what it comes down to. I don't think we're sort of overthinking it at all. I think that's kind of it. And I think just in terms of the wording, right? Register versus sign up. I think register has a more it's a different connotation to it. It's almost like you're committing to something, where signing up is like, I don't know, kind of an industry standard right now for getting into a platform. That's my 2 cents. I don't want to spend too much time on this. We don't normally do these, but it was a fun one. I'm grumbly about it, but
it just proves that we can still do that whole UX thing. And,
we can do
logically do stuff.
we do this in our day job.
Oh yeah, I remember.
All right. Well, this next part of the show needs no introduction. It's just one more thing. Barry, what is your one more thing this week?
And I'm going to stick with one more thing rather than my two. I'm going on holiday next week. We talked about mental health and needing to refresh and regenerate and all that sort of stuff. And I'd like to say that I very much volunteered to go on a holiday next week, but as is my usual thing, I was told I'm going on holiday next week because apparently, who knew, I'm a little bit stressed. Given that it's been quite a while, and we're coming to the end of a couple of very large jobs and this, that, and the other. So Amanda very kindly suggested, in a very forthright manner, that we're going on holiday, and so I'm really very much looking forward to it. We've got a stressful couple of days just to finish out a couple of bits of work. Next week, I'm not allowed to take my laptop. I think my phone's going to be slightly restricted. So yeah, I'm going to try and practice what we preached today, and go and look after myself a little bit.
I am thrilled for you. So that means you're going to leave me high and dry next week for content.
Yeah, sorry.
I want to say, don't worry about it, because, like I said, we are trying to get some of that healthcare symposium preview out for you in place of a regular scheduled podcast next week. So that's why we didn't put it in the programming notes. Anyway, if nothing's next week, Barry's on holiday. As for me, I had a I don't know, it's a weird moment over the last couple weeks. We've had some technical setbacks on the show. Last week it was my microphone, and 2 weeks ago it was the fact that the service that we use to broadcast kind of froze up on us at towards the end of the show, so we lost some content. I really, this has kind of got me down. And I know it's just a podcast, but really we do put a lot of effort and time into this thing on a weekly basis, and genuinely it's something that we feel passionate about. And so when it doesn't go as well as it could, it really bums me out. It's a hobby, but it's also, a way for me to connect with the community. And I felt like one week after another it was something outside of our control, or really just a dumb little mistake that kind of impacted the quality of the show. And there's a comment on Discord this week that actually gave me a big chuckle, and I want to call it out. This one's from Asami that says, only some of us are bots. This was after saying that they really liked the show. So, it's always just refreshing to hear from people on the other side of the headphones, because we're sitting here, we're talking into a microphone. Like I said, we put a lot of time and effort into this thing, and sometimes it feels like no one's listening, even though we know there are. We see the numbers, we know people are listening, but hearing from you all, it's like hearing from the users, right? Like ultimately,
absolutely,
it's refreshing. So thank you, and really that goes for anyone who's ever left a kind comment about the podcast. Can't thank you enough for your kind words. It means a lot to me. So that's it. That's it for today, everyone. If you like this episode and enjoy some of the discussion about mental health and want to hear about some potential solutions to monitoring mental health, I'll encourage you all to go listen to episode 174. We discussed researchers creating an app basically to monitor some mental health by measuring emotions. You can always comment wherever you're listening with what you think of the story this week. For a more in-depth discussion, you can join us in our after show or join us on our Discord community. You can visit our official website, like I mentioned, and sign up for our newsletter. Stay up to date with all the latest Human Factors news. If you like what you hear, you want to support the show, there's a couple things you can do. One, just jump in our Discord. Let us know that we're doing all right. That's really awesome. You can always leave us a 5-star review. That's something you can do too. We see those and we appreciate those. You can tell your friends about us. The more people that listen to the show, we grow by word of mouth. So that really helps us out too. And if you're really feeling generous, you can always support us on Patreon. That financial stuff helps with some of the behind the scenes stuff here. As always, links to all of our socials and our website are going to be in the description of this episode. I want to thank Mr. Barry Kirby for being on the show today. Where can our listeners go and find you if they want to figure out where they can bother you on holiday?
If you want to bother me on a holiday, then you can hit me up on Twitter at Baz_K, or you can go and listen to my podcast at 1202podcast.com, and that's our website for the 1202 Human Factors podcast.
As for me, I've been your host, Nick Roome. You can find me across social media at Nick_Roome. Thanks again for tuning in to Human Factors Cast. Until next time, it depends.
It depends.
And if you're hanging out live, there we go. Get the post-show music going.
It's like a party.
Yeah, it's a party up in here. Wow, what a fantastic show that was.
That was good fun. It's I mean, don't get me wrong, they're all fantastic shows, but some tend to, I don't know,
some shine.
Yeah.
And man, I can't tell you how much I needed that after a couple weeks of technical setbacks.
Well, just wait. We are sure it's gone out, aren't we?
What?
We are sure that it's gone out, and it's
yeah. No, hang on. You know what? Let me just check the audio here. Yeah, no, we're good.
Really quickly.
Oh my god. That was a great show. That was great. And you know, there's a lot of stuff that we didn't actually hit, and I want to make sure that we get into that and reward the people who are sticking around.
Cool.
So there was a couple topics on the main mental health article that we were covering that we actually didn't even get to. I think we had talked about psychological safety, risk assessment, all those things. I don't. We can break this. It's not the show. We can break this down however we like. We can go on as many tangents as we want, but know that there's a lot of stuff we could talk about here.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Let's talk about psychological safety. You know, there's a couple factors here.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because again, it kind of goes into that bit that I was talking about at the beginning around how do we bring in psychological and mental well-being into a safe workplace. So again, the highlights, the notes highlight. So if staff are faced with fear, ignorance, discrimination, and that could be, you know, unconscious and unintentional, as well as, you know, bullying or that type of thing. When they're discussing mental health issues, then they're not going to go and seek support, and that just makes logical sense. That so we need leaders that can develop a culture to allow staff to actually speak up, and it's not just saying about raising concerns. It is about listening. It's about taking it on board and doing something about it, and closing the loop as well. Not just saying, yeah, okay, I've got that, we're going to do something, but actually going back to them afterwards and saying, look, this is what we've done, this is what change we've made because of what you've done, and everyone can do that. You don't just because, I mean, we sort of talk about the employers, but actually to be a leader or even just a champion of health and care services, you can really push this idea of a supportive culture, to make sure that people don't have that sort of fear of blame or repercussion. I think it's that is something that we don't do enough of. Well, in fact, I don't. Do we even do it at all? One would argue, in a real meaningful way. I'm probably doing some organisations a massive disservice, but I think generally, or every organisation could do better at this. What do you think, Nick?
No, I think you're right. Hang on. I want to make two comments really quick. First off, thank you for this comment. This is the type of stuff I was just talking about. This is really flattering and inflates our egos. So thank you so much.
And you can drop questions in as much as you like.
Yes, please do. And feel free to do that during live stuff too. We can answer stuff live, and that's great fun too.
In fact, okay. I insist you put in a question now. And we're just going to sit here in silence until you put in a question.
Oh, man. My camera's glitching. I know. I can't figure out what's going on with this thing. It's like it flickers, right? It does this weird flickering thing. And I just... And sometimes the camera even like stops working entirely. It happened in the pre-show where Barry and I talked for like 10 minutes before. Yes, I do have so much trouble with technology lately and tech-related issues. It's yeah.
So maybe we need to get somebody like Elgato or somebody to come and sponsor us, so you can give you some new tech. Other webcams are available. So
I know. I'm using a cheapo like $30 one from some third party. I need to get a better one. It's on the list of stuff to get. I know.
On a very, very long list.
Yeah. Okay. Getting back to your point. I want to make a point that I don't think I talk about on the show a lot, but you just mentioned leadership and how that is kind of critical to sort of understanding psychological safety. And I want to comment on this because it's a philosophy that I hold, and any members of our digital media lab know this. But whoever's in our lab, the commitment is that you are there, you're excited for human factors, but we know that real life comes first, and we know that this is it's a volunteer work, and so like I always prioritize people's mental well-being. I never hold deadlines to stuff in the lab, which is why sometimes there's projects that have been put on the shelf that we've been working on for a while and don't quite see the light of day, but other things get done and produced, and it's because people have other stuff that they have going on. That anyway, it's just a philosophy that I wanted to share about that leadership and kind of making people feel like or not feel bad about not getting stuff done. That's the ultimate thing, right? Is like, I don't want people to feel like they're pressured in a lab that they're already volunteering their time and effort into. It's just not. Anyway, psychological safety. There it is.
Good call. So one of the other bits that gone.
Hold on. The question came in, Barry.
Oh,
you asked for the question. Here's the question.
Brilliant. Yes, let's do the question. I'm a graduate student in.
You got it.
What's a terminal masters? That's not a phrase I'm used to. Anyway, I'm a graduate student in a terminal masters. I'm just curious if it was helpful from a student perspective to be involved in more subject area specific communities in HFE.
Love the field. I'm not very curious. I am very curious, so I'm excited to get involved, but don't know the utility of those human factors and ergonomics groups as a student, not currently working in the industry. Okay, so I think what you're talking about is the technical groups, and does Chartered Institute have any technical groups or like subgroups?
Yeah, we have a number of special interest groups that do that, and also just to then also we push out a lot of webinars at the moment on a broader range of stuff. But yeah, we do have a number of SIGs that I do. I think in many ways, I think they're great things to be involved with. They're things you can, to a certain extent, it could be a bit like our lab, that you can dip into them depending on how well or not they're ran. You can dip into them and get to learn a bit more. Get to it's effectively volunteering a bit of your time, and you will pick up a broader range of skills. So I'm involved. I'm involved in our defense special interest group because that's one of the things that's my day job. So that's interesting from that perspective. But I'm also involved in an AI and digital health group. Now, so that's the use of AI and digital within the health domain. Now, I've got no real experience in the health domain, and so I'm obviously I'm there to do that transfer piece of AI and digital into the health domain. But I find that fascinating. It's got because I pick up so much from it around the health domain, then I wouldn't be able to get in any other way. I can't just rock into a health job and say, "Whoa, let me do all this," because I have no experience in that whatsoever. So it is a great way of, I think, doing some slight transitioning. So yeah, what about your experiences, Nick? What do you think?
So let's talk about technical groups. We're not on. I mean, we're on air, but it's not the main show. So I'll be a little bit more candid here. Technical groups or special interest groups, you'll get out of them what you put into them. And so I'm not going to sit here and say like they're the greatest thing on the planet, but I will offer some sort of advice, right? So they are really great for making connections. If you go to like the meetups when they have them at a conference, that is a great opportunity to meet people that are working often in that field. So like take an example that I did. I was in the VR or virtual environments technical group for HFES for a long time. Still am, but am not as involved. Never really was too involved, but I did attend a couple of the meetups and I met some really cool people who are working on some very cool things. And, had the conversations gone differently, I may have, had a job lined up with somebody. So I'm glad that you were considering the virtual environments technical group. It's a great group of people. And like I said, you get out of it what you put into it. They are largely dependent on how they're run. I've been kind of plugged out of that one for a while now, especially since pandemic. I would say since like 2018, honestly. I've been kind of unplugged, really from any technical group. But technical groups in general, like I said, can offer you a really good set of networking people that are specialized around a specific topic. And the more you have to kind of bring to those things, the better, right? So when I went to those regular meetings, I was in grad school still, and I was working on VR stuff, and so it was easy to get in and talk about what I was working on in comparison to what they were working on, and who was doing what in the field, and all that stuff. It gets a little more difficult if you're like an outsider. I don't know, Barry, from your experience, is that true?
I think it is, isn't it? It's I'm just trying to think, because each one I've been part of and engaged with is different, and it's made up of its personalities. How it's led is so key. I've got some other groups that I'm a member of on slightly outside of human factors, but with an engineering hat on. They have such a very different tone again, because of what it is that they're trying to do. So yeah, it is so dependent on the leadership. And actually, one of the things maybe it's just because I'm slightly arrogant and bullshit, but if I don't think the way it's working is conducive to us getting stuff out of it, I will either go one of two ways. I will either step back and always do what you did. I'll just unplug, because if I don't think it's going to develop anything good, our own time is so precious.
Yeah.
And having been working a very long day today, and like I say, trying to cram stuff in to get this thing, you sort of realize that there are only so many hours in one day. So actually, something's not conducive to working. Either you unplug or step up. If you think it's got a future, if you think you can see a vision for it that you've got, then actually a vision is 50% the battle of leadership. If you know where you want to go, and you've got the opportunity to do so. Not everybody can do it, and not everybody's empowered to do it, and I completely get that. But actually, with a lot of these voluntary groups, are a place where actually, if you're going to do something good, or you want to do something good, most people would bite your arm off if you're going to show motivation and keenness, because there's a lot of other people sitting there saying, "No, well, I don't want to do anything. I'm just here along for the ride." So they do provide opportunities.
Yeah. I want to jump into, because it also depends on your entry point, right?
Yeah.
I love these questions in the post show, because we can really spend time on them, instead of the 5 minutes we have in the regular show. It depends on your entry point too, right? If you are, master's student, I think you probably have a good in to say, hey, I'd love to help out with, like moderating a discussion or moderating a panel, and a lot of these technical groups really need people to do that type of stuff, and that's a good entry point to say, I want to get involved, I want to put in work, and that also gets you connections to the people who are leading that technical group or special interest group. And then from there, sorry, go ahead, Barry.
No, I was going to say, because I thought I was wanting to say thank you for explaining what you meant by terminal masters. That's very helpful. I hadn't heard of that phrase before.
Yeah, they always need people to do that, and or like volunteer with setting stuff up. So there's at least in the virtual environments technical group, they usually do like a session called Me and My VE that's done at in-person conferences that basically has everyone comes with their own tech demo for VR stuff, and I'm sure there's a lot of setup that needs to happen there, and there's a lot of people there that probably need stuff. So like, just ask to like get involved in some way, right? It could be just as simple as moderating or doing something. Once you get in and kind of get your feet wet and sort of have done the handshaking with the people who are in charge of that technical group, so to speak, then you can say, hey, look, I'd love to get even more involved. I feel passionate about this technical group. And that's where you start to get into the conversations that Barry was having. If you have a vision for a technical group and you want to become part of that structure, that gives you a pathway to become more involved in that technical group. It gives you a pathway to potentially move up within the organization if that's something that you want to do. At least for HFES, there's kind of a clear pathway. It's a muddy pathway, but it's kind of clear, right? Clear as mud. You can kind of hop up the ladder. And it's been a while since I've actually looked at the org chart and all that stuff. But essentially, if you lead a TG, you might jump to, I don't know, a more, what's the word? It's executive council role, or I really should know this. Working with HFES for a long time.
Again, that's the good thing with HFES, though, isn't it? Because it is, I mean, CIHF is a large organization, but it's not huge because it's obviously based in the UK, and we've got regions and that sort of stuff. But actually, the hierarchy is comparatively flat. Whereas in HFES, it must be huge because you must have, you've got your countrywide stuff, and then you've got regional. And they'll all have their own hierarchies quite a lot, I should imagine. The
regional stuff doesn't matter so much, but largely because, I mean, it's been non-existent over, the last couple years.
That's true. Yeah.
So there's, I mean, if you want to see the HFES org chart, I have it up. Hang on, let me share my screen. Here's the HFES org chart while we're talking about it. It's let's see here. Let me share it. There we go. It's a rather small organizational chart. Hang on. There we go. Yeah, rather small, right?
Wow.
So I mean, like, if you think about all this stuff, right? There's different divisions within, and each technical group will kind of have their own organization. So you have like chairs of technical groups down here under internal affairs division.
Yeah.
And you can really work your way up, literally. Maybe you go from a technical group chair to a council of technical groups participant, or become involved in some of these other affinity groups or something. Like I know there's like there you go, the BIPOC group. You have there's like women's group to early career professionals. There's a bunch of different subgroups that you could become a part of, and the more you're involved, I don't know if this is interesting at all. We can talk about it on Discord or something, but like there's a lot of pathways up the chart Like for me, I don't know. I was involved in a couple subcommittees, and like HFES Executive Council doesn't really sound like a career goal that I want to aspire to. It'd be cool, like, but I don't. My heart's not in it. My heart's in communicating human factors, and that's why we're here on a podcast every week. But I mean, the more you're involved, I think the better opportunities you have. Because I think, I don't know, that's the way I think about it, right? The more connected you are with some of these affinity groups, these people are working in human factors, and so you could always that's the thing for me, is you can always reach out to somebody and say, hey, do you have a job? And if the likely answer is no, then you can say, can you make room for a job? And sometimes that happens. Connections. Anyway, this is a big, long tangent from a very simple question.
Yeah. Don't they regret asking the question now?
They're gone.
Actually, I was just looking at that. I've just gone onto the CIHF website to see if we had such a similar diagram, and it highlights actually the CIHF actually launched a new website this week. It might have been late last week.
What is it? CIHF.org?
It is, no, it's ergonomics.org.uk.
Oh, right.
But we've got a new logo, and it's new and bright and stuff.
Oh, wow, look at that. That's fancy.
It is. Well, if you go on to, where do we find that now? The About Us and I think Our People. Yeah. So that shows you some of the people involved. So Norsman is the chief exec, and Tina, she basically makes the whole thing run. She's awesome. And Iris she's been fairly recent, and so goes and basically rings all of the members to make sure they're all on board and happy and stuff. And so you got all the staff, so all them paid employees. Then if you scroll down a bit further, then you got the exec committee, which is nice and simple. You have your past president, your current president, your future president, and the treasurer, and trustees, of which I'm on that list somewhere. As that's your current members of council. And look, there's me, which I've been doing now for the past 3 years. In fact, that's up for re-election as well this year. And then the main one that we have that sort of sits aside from that is this thing called the Professional Affairs Board, and co-chaired by two awesome women, Fiona and Barbara, who do a lot of this. But they're the ones who look after all the accreditations and your personal CPD assessments and stuff. And then look at all the other stuff about how we do that. And everything else is, special interest groups, task groups, all that sort of stuff sits under them. But they're really elect-wise, they're the two main structures that we've got. But it just shows the difference in the numbers of people, doesn't it, in terms of organization?
Mm-hmm. Can I comment on this really quick? I have an immediate prejudice, which is just prejudging people based on their answers to these supposedly fun questions. Why is it that only Tina is a cat person? Everyone else is dog people. And
well, that's because as much as I love Tina, she has to have a fault, and there it is.
Whoa, hey man, did you not see my cat? She was jumping up here during the show.
Most people in my family are allergic to cats, so if you just keep your cat over there, then that's awesome.
She'll be sitting right here by me.
But
we should answer these.
I would say it's the first time I've been on this page in this new format, so actually I really like this whole the getting to know you bit. In fact, I'm going to demand that everybody on the exec committee and the trustees also does the same thing, because I think it's quite a nice thing.
Can we do it right here, you and I?
Let's do it.
Are you a tea or coffee person?
Coffee. Always coffee.
I am tea.
I'm into peppermint tea and peppermint and licorice tea in an evening. But generally coffee.
I'm really more of an energy drink person, but that's not an option here.
They're really bad for you.
But I know. But I don't I don't drink coffee at all. I drink tea rarely, so I'd be tea. Dogs or cats?
We have dogs. Or have a dog. So yeah, definitely more of a dog person out of the dog cats. Yeah.
Okay, I am a cat person. So far we are complete opposites. Are you a spring or autumn person?
Probably spring, mainly because I like to, we're in that bit of it's starting to get warm again, and because in Wales it's wet and it's damp all the time, and so when it starts to get to spring, you think, yes, the summer's coming, and we have to make sure we catch that just before we blink and we miss it. What about you?
And I am an autumn person, continuing with our theme of being
opposites.
Are you a sweet or savory person?
I'm definitely a savory person.
Okay, we agree on something.
Yay! Yeah, because Amanda, my wife, really likes. She'll do the main course and dessert. So when you get 2 courses for like whatever price, she's very much the main course dessert thing, whereas I'm very much starter main course. And I much prefer my savories.
Are you TV or music?
Oh, probably more TV. Though I do, no, I think that, probably TV.
Okay.
I'm a bit 50-50 because actually I quite like listening to music as well. Not as much. Oh, I would have thought this would have given me such angst. Probably out of the two, I probably sit now. I sit down and watch more TV in my downtime, but probably because I just don't have that much downtime. So,
I'm TV too, as evidenced in the pre-show.
Yeah, it's true.
And lastly, town or country?
Country. By a long shot.
Oof, boy. Like it really depends. Oh, geez, where's my button? It really. Where's my button? There you go.
I need to get an audio thing set up with that. But, in fact, if we can do that.
Yeah,
no,
do the same. It really depends. Like living closer to country, but like fun stuff to do, I guess more town.
So we live in a village at the moment, so quite a small village, but we also have the beauty of our house is right in the center of the village, pretty much. But our neighbors, one is a social community group type thing, and then the other side is a church with a graveyard and stuff. So actually, if our neighbors go bad, then that's actually a sign of the apocalypse. So we have different issues, but it's quite nice just being settled in the center. So we've got quite a decent sized garden and stuff, but still have the village living exercise, and not actually that far away from a town or a city. So are you still there? Or have you managed to freeze your cam and completely freeze your input?
No, I'm here.
No, you're there, but your cam again just doesn't like play. I'm gonna have to invest in a cam for you.
No, you know what? I think it's a restream thing because I'm seeing it on the live feed, but you're frozen. So I was watching that too because you keep anyway. We're both there. We're both there.
No, that's. Maybe we need to write to Restream and just sort of say, look, you're messing us around now. We were getting we loved you so much, and now you're just making us doubt.
I know.
What's going on?
Well, they're watching us right now. They're saying, "Hey, you haven't responded to our offer after after our stuff failed on you." Anyway, we're a couple minutes out, and we touched on nothing that we said we would in the post show. That's okay.
We did one.
We did one. We did psychological safety. You know what? I thought we had a good discussion. And that was a great question. And I love answering the live questions because of that reason, right? It directly gives feedback to somebody who needs it.
We give them what they wanted.
Yes, indeed. I don't know. Okay, let's pick one more. Let's get one more out before we go. If there's one that you want to talk about, which one is it? And then let's talk about it, and then I'll pick one too, and then we'll be done.
How about you pick one because I've just closed the window.
Okay. Let's see here. Let's go with work design. Right. So thinking about mental health at work, need to be flexible or allow that flexibility in work arrangements so that people can manage their stuff, their commute to work, their other responsibilities impacted by, at least over the last couple of years, the pandemic, childcare, other things, right? So don't set a rigid schedule of 9 to 5. If your kid doesn't need to be into school until 9, then, allow for some leeway there. adapt some of these working policies to enable some quicker decisions, allow for leave or breaks, just be flexible. I think the theme here is flexibility, right? If you're considering making changes to the ways in which you're working, making sure that you're designing that workplace, or redesigning that workplace, use opportunities to design in some of these ways in which you might be able to help with this mental health approach, or healthy mentality, mentally healthy, however you want to call it.
All of that. Yeah.
Create an environment that encourages and supports staff to seek help with mental health concerns. So this is another one too, is like, if you have a bunch of people, making sure that they have the resources available to seek these mental health issues and encourage it and destigmatize it, really is the work that we're trying to put in here. And then lastly, in this little thing here, is consider what reasonable adjustments you should make for employees who have well-being issues, such as changes to working hours, work locations, and their duties. So being, again, flexible with understanding. Anything you'd like to add to work design before we wrap it up and get out of here? I'm glad we got.
Well, I guess just to wrap up, I guess it all is just this idea of we talked about earlier about acknowledging and recognizing everything that's going on, because if not just leaders, employees, but we all acknowledge that everybody's going through their own journey, their own pressures that we don't know about, but we can all help each other, either directly or indirectly. Celebrate new ways of working and recognize what's worked well and what you can change. I learned so much, certainly in the first lockdown. I learned a lot, and it was interesting seeing how in the first lockdown, so many people, we did so much, but then the second and third lockdown, we sort of took it a bit more for granted, and maybe that was something we could have improved. But yeah, just talk, people. We've got to do it. We as human factors professionals can be doing so much more, I think, for everyone else.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us here. Thank you if you've been hanging out with us live. Really appreciate the comments tonight. That was a ton of fun. And I thought it was a great show. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I don't think we won't be live next week. We'll have something for you, but we won't be live. You can always chat with us in Discord. In the meantime, we're going to try to do more of those hangouts, so that way you can talk to us there.
Yeah. I'm going on holiday. So
all right, Barry. Yeah, you go on holiday. Bye.
I'll see you in 2 weeks.
See you in 2 weeks, man. Have a good holiday.
And you all. See you later. Bye.
All right. Bye.